Alright guys, sorry for the delay. We're going to go ahead and start our meeting at 5:34 p.m. I recognize that I am present, Zane is present, Lisa's present, Michael is present, Nikki is present, Scott is present, and Ryan is present, along with FYAs and ex officios. Starting off, this is our agenda for today. Brenda informed me about 40 minutes ago that Lloyd and John will not be coming in today at all. So we're going to go ahead and strike them from our agenda. Kind of bugging me, but here we are anyway. Hi. You guys can have a seat. Yeah.
You can sit there. I'm sorry.
So because of the fact they're not coming in, and I know that the vote that are favorable, I'd like to move to strike sections 4, 5, 6, confirmation to recess from our agenda. Striking these sections, here we are now to the German side.
No, that's fine.
5, 6, 10. All right, all in favor, please raise your hands now. All opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, so I'll go ahead and confirm all this. All right, did everyone get a chance to look over our minutes from last semester or last meeting, December 3rd? I saw that Elise made some changes onto it, and I made a couple changes as well. All right, is everyone okay with the minutes? All right, is there a motion on the floor?
Move to approve December 3rd, 2019.
Any objections? Here are no objections, the motion passes with general consent. We'll move on to Sahas requests and Buga Bethel Campus Fellowship here. We're going to go ahead and see them first because we believe he's not here right now. So that being said, I'd like to introduce FDL 340-1920 for an off-campus expenditure, and it is number 35 in the Sahas, which would be the second one, 65.
You said 35?
No, 65. Yeah, it's in the vote record, so you have to check on the application. All right, we're going to start off with a round of introduction, just who we are, who your voting members are, who you're going to, all that stuff, and then after that, you'll be given time to do an introduction and explain your request. So we're going to get started with introductions. I'll go ahead and start, and we'll go to my left. So my name is Liam Kim. I'm the current chair of the SGA Finance Board. I use your pronouns, and I am a voting member.
Hi, I'm Dave Hoffmer, Vice President of Student Organizations. These are pronouns.
Hi, I'm Michael Chapman. I'm the Finance Board.
Hi, I'm Nick Ricardo, Finance Board Representative. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a voting member.
Okay, I'm Paxa. Oh, I'm from Paxa. I'm a board member for Paxa. I'm PR. Oh, I'm Marla. I'm Vice President of Paxa Board. I'm Aisha, and I'm the treasurer for Paxa.
Hi, I'm Jeanette. I'm the president of Paxa.
I cannot vote.
I am Ryan Barron. I am the voting member of the Finance Board. I use Susan pronouns.
Kenneth Martinez-Jones, Assistant Director for Leadership for the Governance and Officer as SGA Advisor. I use she, her pronouns, and I am not a voting member.
Tori Beasley, Coordinator for Student Organizations, she, her pronouns, for this Finance Board Advisor, I do not vote.
Just introduce yourselves, and then there's a couple of members that are going to be introduced, and then I'll let you know what you can talk about your request.
And I am the treasurer of the Campus Fellowship.
My name is David Pedro, and I'm the President of the Campus Fellowship.
Hi, I'm Sarah Duke. I'm a first-year ambassador. I use she, her pronouns, and I am not a voting member.
My name is Emmanuel Rosenberg. I am also a first-year ambassador. I use she, her pronouns.
Dean Secretary for Finance Board. I'm a non-voting member. I just
My name is Justin. can use they, them pronouns, and I'm in our category member.
So we get about 3 minutes to kind of introduce your request, what you're requesting for, and then we'll open up to questions for the board.
Okay. So we're requesting funding for our national conference, which is like a 3-day retreat. Yes, a 3-day retreat. We just need some funds so that our people can go to register and be good to go. Yeah. Or do you want me to describe what we do here?
You can if you wanted to, Joyce.
Okay.
For the board too.
Oh, okay. So it's a 3-day retreat, and it's just a place for students just to get encouraged, and there we have career workshops there and networking, and places where they can get like spiritual development and have networking. So people come back encouraged, and they have life skills that they come back and bring to UMBC as students, and for the rest of their lives they can use the life skills that they learned at the conference.
We'll open up, are there any questions for the organization at this time? David?
I guess, when did you find out about this conference?
It's a yearly conference, so it happens every year. Yeah.
Any other questions?
So I guess in terms of like other sources of funding, do you have any like partnerships with other orgs on campus that you're doing, or like any like departmental or other institutional support?
No, we do not.
So like, do our members like expected to contribute as well?
Yeah.
If, like,
Any other questions? Scott, go ahead.
So if you can scroll down to the documentation, it says 28K. Is that the correct documentation? A little further down. Right there. If you go to the conference
yeah.
cost breakdown.
Yeah, it's actually for 2020, but it's the same information for each year. So I think that would just error on the front.
Okay.
Yeah.
But are you using early registration, regular registration, or late registration costs when?
For the cost we did regular, so $250. So it's not late. It's just
Okay.
yeah.
Alright, David?
Were you aware of the fall, or I guess, spring 2020 semester budget application process?
Yes. But we like have a new treasurer, and it was like a new process for us because we don't have our old treasurer, so it's kind of new for everyone. And I was trying to like work on it and get it done on time. But when we set the request to our advisor, she wasn't able to fill it out on like the date. Yeah.
Any other questions? Alright, we're gonna go ahead and enter creative discussion. During discussion, only finance from representatives and board members can talk amongst each other. You will be able to talk during this time, but if you hear something you feel is off, your words have been misconstrued or something you want to address, take note of it, and you'll be given a chance to address anything at the end. Alright, with that, we're in discussion. Whoever would like to start us off? Michael.
So the Sawhouse Pod is very limited in funding, and due to this not, in my opinion, being a very unforeseen circumstance, I'm not for funding this event due to the extreme cost of the event, in addition to the fact that this should have been submitted during the spring 2020 fall budget, spring budget cycle. So due to the burden this request would put on the Sahas Pod, in addition to the fact that there was the opportunity submitted during the spring 2020 budget cycle, I'm not in favor of funding.
Dave?
Oh, also I just wanted to, it would be, I mean, just looking at like the website they have, it would be considered late registration because the late period starts on the 1st of December, so it would be like, it would be the $275 cost. So $250, so you can bring that in there as well.
Other discussion points? Zane, go ahead.
I would also kind of agree with Michael in the sense, I know, in terms of like trying to transition, things like that, we as a board, I know Scott, and the treasure support team also, held workshops and had reminders and things like that for, submitting budget deadlines and things like that. But kind of also in the sense that the Sahas pot is also, kind of limited, geared towards more of like unforeseen circumstances, which, example, like competitions that could be qualified or something. But since this is kind of an annual conference, I guess it is expected that it's held every year, so, it can be foreseen as, if you guys want to go or not.
Yeah, I'm kind of feeling the same way, just because if it is an annual conference, it should require the board was ready and willing to help out people who needed it, so there's not much case for an unforeseen circumstance. At least the way I see it right now. Any other discussion points? No? All right. I'd like to move previous questions on debate.
Second.
Oh, please.
Am I allowed to ask a question?
I rescind my motion.
You guys received emails from anyone regarding like the workshops? Have you gotten in contact with them?
Yes. So what happened was that, like, when we did the application process, we had completed it, but one thing that tripped me up was that I didn't see the advisor approve of something. So I was like, am I supposed to see it or am I not supposed to see it? So then when I was about to submit it, that's when like it popped up. So I was like, oh, that's what it is. When I reached out to her, like, she said she wasn't able to do it. Yeah. But like we understood the process, but it was just the advisor approval. Something for yeah. That's what it said.
That makes sense. Any other discussion points or questions? All right, I'd like to move previous questions and debate.
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? All right. Is there anything else you'd like to address or say before we move to vote?
Just regarding funding, like, it's okay if it's not 12,000. Like anything would help the register. So, just any funding at all, like even the minimum would help.
We'll take that into consideration. That being said, I'd like to introduce FDL 340-1920, approval of the Bethel Campus Scholarships Fall 2019 Secondary Ad Hoc Allocation System request for the total amount of $12,500, I believe. Yes, $12,500. Is there a motion on the floor?
Move to enter discussion.
There's a motion under discussion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we're moving into discussion.
Well, just so it has some consideration, I don't think that we can fund this since it wasn't submitted in the proper pot. We don't have enough money in Sahas to fund events that should have been in the semester early budget application. So.
Reminder, the documents can be amended, but 12,000 is still a pretty big hit. Just out of curiosity, how much do we have in this class?
13.6.
And that rolls over, whatever is on rolls over to spring.
What's spring looking like? What's spring looking like? What's the total amount?
Isn't that 18.5?
I was going to say the stern had 6, but I met with Royer today. We will not have those numbers till January, as I predicted, because they are just getting to ECS going to the fall right now.
That's
There are
pretty
at least 2 new organizations that will probably request some funds for events that just got approved. Well, yeah, emails that have already emailed me, or that have already emailed me asking how they can request. So
You're gonna do that through Sahas.
that's, yeah.
Yeah, because the SOC for this semester, I don't know the exact number, but we did pass a number of groups that would potentially request for funding.
9 total awards.
Yeah, last year.
Scott?
Interject so we can just stay on the same topic.
Oh, sorry.
Any further discussion points?
Move to end discussion.
Second. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Motion still on the table for approval of FPL 340-1920. I'll go ahead and move to approve FPL 340-1920, approval of Bethel Campus Fellowships Fall 2019 Sahas request. Is there a second? Hearing no second, motion fails. Sorry, guys. Thank you for coming in.
Yes, can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
So for funding in general, like do you guys like do second allocations or anything like that?
At the current moment, no, we're not doing a second round, just because our funding's limited. If we had received less requests than the amount we had, we probably would do a second round, but our funding was stretched as well.
Thank you so much, guys.
Sam, can you want to come out and see the?
Yeah, I can talk to you guys about,
Thanks a
a
lot.
few like documents about alternate funding sources,
Okay.
outside of SGA.
Saying as the VPSO handles a lot of that stuff, so you know, kind of needs to try to get together. I'm sorry that you couldn't do it.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in. Oh, yeah. We'll get to while we reset and wait for Zane to get back from grabbing cookies and or cupcakes, please do so.
Hello, sir. Hello. Can I write your name on the?
Yes, we have finance all
Sad that you. Tori, before you.
Yes, everyone who's present is allowed to take in, regardless of whether or not you're on the board. Cookies and small cupcakes. I've got Oreos, ice chocolate,
Ours looks kind of funny. Ours looks kind of funny. Yeah. Oreos kind of chocolate. Pizza.
Even though you didn't get out of
So you're gonna give me signals?
Throwing it all away for this.
you don't know.
That worked? That worked. Let the record show that Jasmine was unable to identify what those cookies were called, so typed in those cookies into Google, and the image actually came up.
What?
Those cookies. She didn't know what they were, so she typed in those cookies. Yeah, but she just typed in those cookies, and that's the only thing that came up. Scott.
Did we hear anything from Weeble?
We have not heard anything from them.
Well, they were already in here, they sort of switched their design, right?
Yeah. So, their request was resubmitted, the email was sent out, we'll probably vote on that. Alright, let's bring it back in. I'd like to introduce to the floor FPL 341-620, which is UMBC's request. They are number 66. Or 66.
Good evening, everyone.
Would you like to do introductions first, or do you want to just go ahead? It doesn't matter.
Good evening, everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Tolo Billy. I'm the founder and president of UMBC, which is the official cooking club. And today, I'm here on behalf of my board. We have used our Sahas application to request $270 towards towards our merchandise fund We are using money towards 15 t-shirts and 12 aprons. The way that it works is that thanks to the SGA and other tactics and a newly elected board, our club membership has immensely grown over this past semester. So we've had to manage our membership, and we're getting incentives so people come back. Essentially, the more times you show up, and the more times you help out extracurricularly, the more you get, like the higher level you get. So people kind of made a base level in the club for t-shirts. People who did a little bit extra and helped out with something like bake sale or something outside the club, or an apron. So that's how it worked. We decided that we looked at prices on Custom Make and a couple other places, and we also through bake sales and other fundraisers, we raised over $87 net in carryover this semester. So if this does get passed, we would have enough money to pay for the rest of it with our carryover account.
Are there any questions for the organization at this time? Scott, go ahead.
Both items are over 10 times, so you understand that you have to fund the rest from your carryover?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Okay.
I really like that design. Questions or comments?
Questions or comments? Ms. Martinez, no?
I have a design comment. So I see that your print for the apron is black, and then your logo is black. I would recommend doing a transparent background on your logo. Yes. So that because otherwise it's going to look like black with a black square printed on it, and even though they're both black, you're still going to be able to see that a black square was printed on it. I would just ask.
Oh, I see what you mean.
You see what I mean? So I would ask whoever made the logo, did you make it, or did somebody else in your org make it?
Competition.
Oh, I would ask competition to change it to a transparent background.
I think we do have.
Yeah. Easy.
I think we do have a version of that. We also did some research on custom make. I think they automatically make.
Okay, cool. So yeah, that would be my recommendation, and just to make sure that it's that, otherwise it's gonna look weird. Because it is a very cute logo.
Yeah, I mean, looked on.
And I want it to look
Yeah, I mean,
different.
looked on custom made, and the prices are about the same. So we have to cover that.
Cool.
It's literally like 3 coats on the shop.
Yeah.
Let's go. All right. An updated design was set in the finance board box, so it now says the UMBC Cooking Club, so it does fall within design guidelines. Any other questions for the organization? Sorry. All right. Hearing no further questions, we're going to move into creative discussion. During discussion, only finance board representatives and board members can talk amongst each other, or next edition members that kind of stuff. So you won't be able to talk during this time. But if you hear anything you feel is out of place or your words have been misconstrued, just take note of it. You'll be given a chance to address everything you said at the end. With that being said, I'd like to move into discussion. Scott?
So it's like 15 shirts plus 12 aprons, so it's like 270.
Yeah.
So fun with that. That's nice, we can fun.
No objections.
And even if they opt to do like the redesign without the black square, it would still be over $10, so I'm comfortable funding that when they can do it.
Other discussion points? I'd like to move previous question. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. That being said, I'd like to officially introduce FBO 341-1920, the approval of UMBC's Fall 2019 House request for the total amount of $270.
Move to approve FBO 341-1920.
Second. All right. Any abstentions? All right. All in favor, please raise your hands now. All opposed? 6-4, 0 against, 1 abstaining, 2 not present. Motion carries. Congratulations, you got funded. Our treasurer Scott Kent's going to walk out. He's going to go through the process of actually using the money that we just gave. Thanks so much for coming out.
Thank you so much for coming to the Vice President.
So, are you close to that? You are,
Those that just came in, we have cookies and pastries free for take, so if you're interested, go ahead and grab some. Yes. We still have 4. All right, there's a motion to amend the agenda. There's a second. What change would you like to make?
I would like to add, hearing, confirmation, yeah, that's the word, confirmation of, an election board.
Here is that word that lied to me. So she said they definitely, but I have no interest in that. All right, I'll second the motion. The amendment, let me go ahead and pull it out of our drive. All right, all in favor of amending the agenda as, give me a second. Oh, I'm suggesting that. All right, so with the adjustment, adding in confirmation of Lloyd, we'll change the time to 6 p.m., adjusting discussion as such. All in favor, please raise your hands now. All opposed, 6-4-0 against, the motion carries. That being said, since it is right now on our agenda, I'd like to introduce JL 09-1920, which is the confirmation of Lloyd as an election board member. Last night, the Senate reopened JL 09 and JL 10 to amend it as such to remove the passage. So this is the as stands. Yes.
Why?
What do you mean why?
They said they removed the.
Oh, there was a secondary passenger there. Francis just directly copied everything over. So there was, be it further resolved that this election board member shall become a voting member of the nominating committee. For the ones that we confirmed on Friday, we struck those and sent them back to the Senate.
Because that's for the election board chair.
The election board chair
She
becomes a member
copied
of the
everything
nominating
from the
committee.
legislature for the chair.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, since the legislature copied over, we made those amendments as such. But the Senate rectified their mistake last night, so this is a good enough to go. That being said, we're going to go ahead and do a round of introductions first of all, and then you'll have about 3 minutes to introduce yourself, why you want to be here, why you want a position, all the stuff. We'll do questions and discussion period and then voting. So let's start with introductions. Thanks for volunteering, Scott.
Great. Scott Buchanan, I'm the SGA treasurer. Ethan, I am a voting member. Ryan Varian, I'm a voting member of the finance board, and I'm the student governance.
Yes, Martinez Stone, Assistant Director for Leadership and Governance, I also serve as SGA advisor. She, her pronouns, I am not a voting member.
Coordinator. Threw me off. Tori Beasley, coordinator for student organizations, she, her pronouns, finance board advisor, I do not vote.
Alex here, I'm the president of the Bod Squad, and I'm not.
He's a liar.
You don't know that.
I do know that.
Hey, have some respect for student organizations that come here, please.
Hi, I'm Susan Cucumber, first year in bachelor. I use she, her pronouns, and I do not vote.
I'm Emmanuel Lozano. I am also first year ambassador. I use she, her pronouns, and I do not vote.
Dean Green, Secretary for Finance Board. I'm a non-voting member, and I use the pronouns.
My name is Jasmine Kwan. I use they them pronouns and I'm a non-voting member.
My name is Liam Kim. I'm the current chair of the finance board. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a voting member.
Hi, I'm Zane Falkenberger, Vice President of Student Organizations. He has pronouns.
I'm Elisa Kai. I'm finance board representative voting member.
Untitled Chapter finance board representative. We have SGA nominated.
Hello, hi, my name is Lloyd. Keegan, election board member candidate.
Hi, I'm Victor Falcon, a finance board representative. I usually hear pronouns. I am a voting member, and I also was on the
Hi, I'm Hafsa. I'm here for Taxa board. Hi, I'm the vice president of the Taxa board. I don't vote. My name is Aisha, and I'm the treasurer for Taxa.
Hi, I'm Janet, I'm the president of Taxa. Hello, Ethan, retriever, don't vote.
You want to give an introduction of who you are, why you want to be here, all that good stuff.
Yes. Hello. Again, my name is Lloyd. I'm a senior theater major. I would like to be an election board member because as a transfer student from 2 years ago, I noticed that I was also one of those apathetic voters from the perspective of I wasn't here as a freshman, I don't know what goes on, I wasn't part of the SGA, and I think I have some pretty decent ideas on how to capture the transfer audience, transfer students. So that was my main thing. I'd also like to be in SGA because in my former institution, CCDC, I was also part of SGA. I'd like to continue that on in my last semester. Also, my schedule allows me to do more stuff next semester, which is always the key point. So, yeah, that's my spiel.
Are there any questions for the candidate this time? Ryan, Scott, same.
So what sort of ideas do you have to capture the transfer/commuter population?
Yes, yeah, I think working in OCS has given me sort of a view of what the transfer traffic is on campus. A lot of our transfers typically come to campus. They will park either in the circle or in the commons garage if they find parking, and then come to the commuter lounge. And they usually hang out there for like 30 minutes to an hour before their classes start, doing homework or studying or just hanging out with their friends. And I think we can utilize that time and that space that they're there to plug in the people who are running for offices in the SGA. Plug in, I know the Main Street is right there and people are tabling, but I think even having a more direct access to the people and talking to them directly about voting, about the people who are running and their platforms will have a much personal effect on the voters. That's just one thing I have. Yeah.
So I have 3 questions. Can I ask them all?
Yes.
Okay. So what year are you?
I'm a senior.
What other roles do you have on campus?
I was a NOVA. I currently work in OCSS as a transfer student network leader. We help transfer students. I am also a mentor for incoming transfer students. I am the vice president of the Theater Council of Theater. Yeah, that's it.
That's actually it.
Okay. Zane, go ahead.
My question, I guess, is kind of related to Ryan's, about, I guess, what ways do you think are most effective in like engaging voters, I guess, whether that be through types of events or just like any general ideas you think are best ways to engage people?
I think having a personal outreach to the transfer population will be best because, especially in this semester, I've met transfer students who also fit the adult learner category and they feel like they're segregated on campus. They feel like they can't go to events because they're 25. They feel like they can't engage as much because everyone else is like 18 or something. So I think, but when they talk to me or other like student staff members, they feel more welcome. So I think having a more personal one-on-one encounter with transfer students, adult learners, will get them more, will entice them to vote more if they have a personal connection, a face to the cause.
Any other questions?
relationships with anybody in the SGA that could like hamper your judgment or present bias in your decisions?
I was in OPA with Kai. And, no.
And another question, to my understanding, you were supposed to come last week, but did not show up. Will this position have like a priority in your like work school balance and everything?
Well, to my understanding, I was supposed to be here tonight at 6 p.m. There must have been some confusion.
Okay. It's on our end. I don't want you to have to answer anything.
Any other questions? All right, we're going to go ahead and move into creative discussion. During discussion, only finance representatives and voting members can talk amongst each other. You won't be allowed to speak during this time, but if you feel any of your reports have been taken out of context or there's anything you'd like to address, take a note of it. You'll be given a chance at the end of discussion. All right, with that, we're in discussion. Who would like to start us off?
I think given Lloyd's experience and like unique perspective in being a transfer, working directly with transfer students and engagement, I think that'd be a really good asset to have them forward, especially as I'd say a significant portion or a large enough portion at UMBC of the community that should be engaged in terms of like representation on campus and being active. So I think that'd be a really good asset. And then also seeing Lloyd be the MC at Pangea, I would say that he brings a lot of energy. So I would think that'd be very helpful in terms of organizing events and really getting out there and engaging people. So I would be in full favor of voting yes on this confirmation.
Can say it any harder.
I'm probably in favor, even though my vote's conditional, just because I can definitely see why you guys are pushing for it last meeting. Yeah. Any other discussion points?
Maybe it's kind of repetitive, but yeah, Lloyd is very qualified for this position. And nominating him, we all thought that because of his connections all throughout campus, that is very important, especially because these connections aren't like involved with SGA anyway. So it's like outside of SGA, but there's a lot of connections with campus, and that helps us bring populations that really are kind of missed through like trying to get students to develop.
Any other discussion points? All right, I'd like to move previous question.
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? All right, do you have anything else you'd like to say before we move into a vote? All right. With that being said, I'd like to introduce JL09-20, confirmation of Lloyd, how do you pronounce your last name? Epic. It's that easy. Now I feel dumb. Lloyd as an election board member. I'm not going to read out the whole thing.
Move to approve JL09-20.
No, I introduced it. There's a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, would anyone like to register an abstention at this time? All right, all in favor, please raise your hands now. All opposed? 6 for, 0 against, 1 abstaining, and 2 not present. Motion carries. Congratulations.
Just swear your feet.
I got plates. All right, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Lloyd McBeth,
Do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
to faithfully execute
to faithfully execute
the office of election board member
the office of election board member
of the UMBC Student Government Association
of the UMBC Student Government Association
and will, to the best of my ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
promote and defend
promote and defend
the interest and well-being
the interest and well-being
of UMBC's undergraduate students.
of UMBC's undergraduate students.
Congratulations. We're going to head over to the candidates.
Yeah. Table.
For payroll.
Okay.
Oh, right now? Oh.
Yeah, we just do a little thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna send you a
What's next on the agenda?
Hey.
To amend the agenda to include
Was a second? All right, putting it directly after confirmation, but looking for discussion on reallocation. All right, all in favor, please raise your hands now. All opposed, the motion carries. Before we start on that, I have another question to pose. If Wood came in, what are the chances that John's gonna come in?
I think Brenda's, what was saying, you were saying like, being out in
Yes,
I can pull up the receipts.
because Brenda indicated to us, at least at the meeting prior, that both you and John were gonna be unable to make it due to studying today, that we would not see you until next semester.
It's also fine.
Now, hesitant in case he does end up showing up at 7:10.
Hold up. Saying that she goes wrong today.
We wanna,
So we did send an email to Wood atheism. He to come into last week's meeting.
do you wanna just continue and Candace is gonna look into it?
Yeah, so I just wanted to, so we'll check into that, but just bear in mind that has something much to do. That being said, I'd like to move into the PAXA discussion. Seeing as we have the organization here, we've already done several rounds of introductions, so you're fine if we skip from this point. Lloyd, you're free to go, you can stay if you'd like, there's an application too. You'd like to stay while you're here and what you'd like to say, all that stuff?
So, our reason to come here today is because of the allocation requests, and the changes in the budget form and an issue on campus life. So, the actual reason is, to ask more about the budget request and, so we actually missed our budget, deadline, which is because of, a lot of reasons actually, but, so I'm gonna go over, a couple of the things right now. So, I've actually came across this obstacle a couple of times in the past semesters. This is my actually second year to be on the board for PAXA, and every semester it's always been a struggle to put the budget request in and go with the procedure. But I mean, we have gotten it done in the past, and we still keep trying to do it. But actually, for this semester, I've seen that budget forms have been changing since last semester because of the whole issue, and I was here a lot last semester to resolve things and to make our event happen, but unfortunately last semester we couldn't have it, which was due to the lack of efficiency from campus life a lot. I would like to mention. For this semester, for the fall semester, from spring to fall, it was easy to submit a budget request since it was summer break, everyone was free, so we could, everyone was aware of what was going on, and we met the deadline. But for this semester, there were a lot of changes. So one thing that I would like to mention, one thing I would like to focus on is that having the budget deadline in the middle of the semester when everyone is, so actually for like this semester, we had our main event the week after the deadline. So our whole board was actually busy with running last minute things for our main event, because our main event is this semester was 400 people and it was all sold out. And we had a lot of responsibilities to take care of, and we had, and in addition to that, we had of course our academics, our schoolwork, and all the other responsibilities. But then we had the budget request, which we also, so for the budget request, we had to plan our event first, which we tried our best to do. And then also we had a new treasurer, and I believe she did go to trainings and she tried her best to do it. But then on the other hand, we tried to meet with campus life, but I guess they were so overwhelmed with work, with a lot of budget requests, that they were not available to meet with us. We've been trying for the last week before the deadline, we've been trying to reach out to them, but it's been impossible for us to make an appointment and to get the proper paperwork to submit the budget request. And I think the treasurer has a couple things to say.
I would like to add on to what you said. So basically with the budget form, you need the ECS form in order to go on in the budget form, like to proceed. But the issue is that the ECS form needed to be like signed by Brit, and she was really busy, and I was trying to make appointments with her before the deadline as well, but she was really busy. Like she had no appointment slots, so that was the main issue. Otherwise, I could have submitted it on time, but that was the main concern, and it was also new for this semester too, the whole budget form.
I'll go ahead and address some of the concerns. Members of the board and advisors, feel free to stop me at any time if you believe that I've said something incorrect, and feel free to chime in on any points that you believe that I should be mentioning. As far as budget, we definitely understand the concerns that, it is the middle semester, there's a lot of work to be done. But I don't really see the last minute excuse panning out as much, because we did advertise this several weeks prior to the beginning of it. Attending treasurer training would have let you know about the deadline ahead of time prior. As far as campus life, while I admit they were definitely swapped with requests during that last week, Britt Spears sent out several emails to the student treasurers group and to a event board group indicating that the last day to sign up for her would be the week prior to the 13th, because it's not just meeting with her and getting the form signed, she has to put in a base camp, all of that. So she made her information clear that, within that week prior was the last time she'd be accepting appointments for the next week. She did hold open office hours during that time frame, before I understand they were pretty much swapped as well. As far as our timeline, there's not really much we can do to change it on that front. Any later that we make it, and it forces this board to work over winter break. Any earlier that we make it, and it's simply too soon for clubs and organizations to be able to plan out their events for the next year. And I'll admit that, it's not ideal, but it's the best situation that we're currently in. There's not really much we can do on that front. I'd recommend, again, pre-planning ahead of time. Definitely not waiting until the last minute, even the last week in this case. As far as I understand, our treasurer had budget workshops set up for the 2 weeks prior to the budget submission of the 18th. So that week of the 18th and the week prior to come in. And finance board liaisons were reaching out, ready and willing to help out with that budget submission. So even if you did have issues, they'd be willing to sit by and submit that information along with. Those are, I believe, the main points of the previous address. And I understand that it's not favorable for organization. I apologize for that. But it's the way the system is now. When it comes to submitting budgets for your fall 2020 request in spring, I'm sure your liaison will be happy to help out. I'll be happy to sit down with you personally to help you fill out forms and such. But it really is a game of you have to start earlier this year. And when it comes to ECS and budget forms, even in past finance boards for the year before on the old system, ECS fees and meeting with Brit was still required before coming into the board. So the shifting the budget doesn't change that fact. But I believe that's what I have to say. If you have anything else you would say, or if any other members of the board or advisors would like anything to say as well.
I actually have something to say. So with the ECS form, that email, I talked to Scott, and that email was only sent to 2 people in my organization, which was the president and the event coordinator. And the event coordinator, unfortunately, this semester, she wasn't as involved as we would like her to be, and the president had so many things going on too. I wasn't informed. If I was informed beforehand, I would have gotten that done. I only got emails like a month in advance before that. I knew it was coming up, and I talked to Junaid too, and he filled the form out too before, and we didn't know the ECS form was needed. If I knew about it beforehand, I never got the email personally. So maybe next semester you guys can improve that part of the system, because I feel that was the only issue. Otherwise, we couldn't have gotten it done.
So those emails only went out to those people because they have 25 live access, and it should be on the responsibility of your 25 live schedulers to get that form. So big scheme of things, it never goes out to the treasurer unless the treasurer is the 25 live scheduler and the event planner for the board. ECS fees and forms have always been required and mandatory. The only semester it wasn't was this past fall semester. So it's not something new. I would suggest also putting that in your transition documents. So whenever you have a new treasurer coming in, you're making this in lists so that that information can get lost whenever you're getting a new board. So making sure that it's listed in your transition documents too, because like you said, it only went out to your event planners, but it's also something that you need to know as well.
Yeah, and I believe it was something mentioned during treasurer training, and Scott's had treasurer training too, so an updated version to help really hammer on the important points, which would be some things like ECS. Put more emphasis on it, so I'd recommend attending a treasurer training too if you haven't already. Scott, will treasurer training twos continue next semester or no? That information will be on the treasurer's group page. I definitely recommend attending.
So
I
Yeah,
just have a couple more things to add to this.
Yeah, of course.
So, yes, this semester was a little rough for everyone. Pretty sure everything was so new, so it took everyone a lot of time to get a hold of this. And so was the campus life and everything, how you were saying that I was already so busy with everything. So how can we fix this issue for this semester? Is it still possible for us to get funding for next semester, or is it too late for this now?
The current one for this semester is going to be too late to receive funding because we simply allocated everything that we had and then some. So we don't really have anything left in our pot in terms of being able to give for events. The only thing we have left is our Sahas pot, but our bylaws kind of reserve that for certain situations. Unfortunately, this one doesn't fit that. However, in terms of funding for this semester, while it won't be able to come from the finance board, that doesn't mean there aren't other ways to achieve funding. Zane, as our VPSO, has been hosting an alternative funding workshop. I believe he's planning on hosting another one. He has information on things such as Grid Starter. I know bookstores work, the types of fundraisers, how much they typically gain. Basically, every other way to kind of achieve revenue besides the finance board is present. So Zane can definitely help you out with that in terms of getting funding. If you guys host a fundraiser, email the finance board inbox. We'll see how you guys can come out. Pitch in a couple dollars. But as far as the finance board funding, there's nothing we can do for that for this semester.
Okay, sure. And so how would you address the fact that if we come up with an event that, if we plan an event that's after the budget deadline for the next semester, so that there's no possible way to get funding for that event?
It's a circumstantial situation when it comes to that. So if it's an on-campus event that could have been feasibly planned prior to the budget season, not feasibly as in time constraints, but like did the idea exist, all that kind of stuff is going to go through. Sahas reserved for that is usually for new clubs or unforeseen circumstances, so issues and response kind of stuff. So there's not really much you can do this semester in terms of that. The exceptions simply don't work out because your organization's been around for a while.
Right.
And unforeseen circumstances isn't like we just came up with this idea today that we can have next semester. It's more like I know that's not a good example. I always use natural disasters and I hate using those as an example. But like we use natural disaster for example, that's not something that's foreseen. And if a group wanted to put something together for that, that would fall under an unforeseen circumstance because no one could have planned for that. Not just like we just came up with this idea and it's past the budget deadline and now I want to ask for money. So that doesn't count as an unforeseen
That doesn't count.
Correct.
So if you want to plan new events after the budget
you have to
deadline.
find ways to fundraise for yourself. And I think it's also very important to remember that finance board funding is never promised to any organization.
Right.
So especially since you have had this event for so many years, I think it would be very wise to start thinking of additional funding because finance board is never promised, but you do know what the cost typically is for this event every year. So
Right.
I don't know who's walking you all out, but they have information on, Grid Starter, on fundraisers, stuff like that to really use and to make sure that you can still have your event in the circumstances that finance board A doesn't fund at all, only partially, stuff like that. So it's very important to kind of take some initiative on your own too to find outside sources and not solely rely on finance board.
Right. So if it's not about the same event, what if there is another small scale event that doesn't require as much?
You'd
So even
still
with
have to,
that,
you'd still have
still
to let
have
it
to
through,
go with
yeah. So if that was something that you wanted for the spring, it would have had to be requested in the fall process.
It's not really about the amount of money, just the type of event. And again, like Tor doesn't like use natural disaster, for example, or say that an important figure recently died and your club's like holding out a tribute or something. Things that could not be foreseen. I know Anime Club did that. It was past submission deadline for them, but an anime studio had been in charge of terrorist attacks. They wanted to hold a vigil for them. That's like an unforeseen type circumstance. But this board's making that determination. So unless it is something that we can all agree on,
Right.
chances are that it will get funded.
Okay, that's good to know.
Anything else that we can help with today, or any other issues or concerns that we can help explain, or maybe try and work to fix?
My only major concern is still, I would repeat the point again, and I'm sorry for that, but
Go ahead.
my only concern is having the budget deadline right in the middle of the semester. If it either be pushed back a little or pushed like somewhere either at the start or at the end, because if it's in the middle, everyone is having their events, everyone is, how can we plan and then execute the events that already have been planned and take care of academics at the same point? That just gets too much for anyone to do. Even though we have a lot of board positions and everyone tries to help out as much as possible, but then there is, again, like what happened to us this semester, our main event, everyone is running around doing the things for the event. And then at the same time, we have to plan. At the same time, we have to take care of the exams. At the same time, there are a billion other things to do. Right in the middle of the semester, I think it's the worst idea to have a budget deadline. Because just like we missed this semester, anyone can mess it up for the future semesters.
Oh, yeah, then Zane, and then I have my comments.
I definitely understand your concern, and also in that same vein, us moving the date could also potentially cause the same situation for several wards. Depending, no matter when the deadline is, the same situation can happen for any ward, and it's also, the date isn't based on like when like an ward is having an event or anything. It's not like we have no idea when like every single club's like having their events or anything. It's strictly only in the middle, because the first 7 weeks are so that planning can occur, and then the next like 5 weeks for finance board to go through everything and then release the funds so that all that planning that happened can be used to pre-order things and to figure out actually use the funds. So moving the date would essentially remove either the planning process or the amount of time needed to get the funds. And so at that same time, I just see this problem is like, it's gonna be there, and the only really way is to understand like when your events are and to prepare for that and understand that you're gonna have to plan before. Whether that be like, if you're like, for some arts they do plan during breaks. I mean, I know that's not like the best thing, but that is something that orgs do. I can tell you right now that the date for fall 2020 budgets is March 13th, 2020. So if you want to remember that. Taxes liaison is Justin Connor. He's the current vice chair of finance board. He's not here today, but that's someone you can reach out to. I mean, you can also reach out to any one of us. Like, you don't want to reach out to anyone either. We're always like open to answer any questions, can pull office hours. We're here to provide information and stuff. Changing the date, because I've heard from other clubs asking me to pull the date pull the date one way. I've had clubs asking to pull the date the other way. There's no way for the date to work perfectly for everyone. And so we keep it in the middle, so that way we have time on either side for planning for clubs and for us. So that's
I just want to add one point to this. Just like we had it in the past, how we submitted the budget request according to the events of every org, you would submit either 2 months before or 3 months before, whatever the timeline is. That's another option that could have been done. And then the second thing is that just like in the summer, we had the deadline during summer break. I think it was in June or end of May. Sometime around that.
That's correct. But in that situation, it was a transition for the board. We'll definitely take your feedback into consideration, but we can't promise any changes.
Right. Okay.
I think it's important to note too that, I mean, this is the system that it is right now. You know it's coming in the middle of the semester, but that doesn't mean you can't be planning early. So you kind of stated that you wished it was up earlier. The Survey Monkey is not open yet, but hopefully will be open the end of January? Beginning of January. So just because the due date isn't until March 13th doesn't mean you can't be submitting.
Right.
So if you want to be planning earlier, you are more than welcome to be doing that and submitting budgets. It's just, it has to be turned in by that March 13th deadline. It's always smarter anyway to plan
Right,
in
of
advance, especially with things that you mentioned, that everyone tries to crunch it to the last second, and then that's when you can't get meetings with Brit.
Right.
So you want to plan earlier, which is perfect, because then you'll make sure everything's done. You can meet with Justin. You can go over everything to make sure it looks great. But just because that date's there doesn't mean that's the date you should turn things in. So you have
Right.
that time earlier to be doing things that match with your schedule.
Right. Okay, just a point, sorry, it's taking too long. But, so about the deadlines, sure, that's how finance board works and that's what you guys established. But then again, the budget deadline for this semester, I'm not sure if it was made available at the start of the semester.
The Survey Monkey was made available about 1 month into the semester, once treasure training had started on that.
1 month in the
No,
semester.
it was available in August.
That was available in August. So yeah.
So the deadline was available in August?
If the
Yeah.
application
Mhm.
opened up, then you could
Alright.
use the start of the school year.
Okay, and then, so the second thing is that, yes, the campus life gets busy and they had to cancel, or Brett had to say that the last week is unavailable. But then the budget deadline is still for the last day, for that particular day. If, of course, campus life is gonna be involved in the budget request. If, in case that happens, person gets busy, why not move the deadline to whenever she's available?
I mean, to be fair, it's just poor planning on Org's part. If you know that the deadline is the state, everyone tries to crunch into the last second.
Right.
And that just is not feasible for one person to meet with all those orgs, and that's something that is not Brit's fault. You all just have to be planning smarter.
Yeah,
So that's
sure.
it. Org should be meeting with her the same way Courtney and I right now are having all of our student org meetings. We will not be expanding our calendars
No, I
to
get
work
it.
with people that wait last minute. So Brit has been extremely lenient and cleared her whole calendar for this process, and it's still filled up. So it's just a matter of planning smarter and waiting to the last week on anything student org related or in life is just not smart.
Right.
So if her calendar fills up, it fills up. It's first come, first serve at that point.
Right.
Two things I'd just like to point out is that Brit made that deadline established because of our deadline. So moving it back wouldn't have helped anybody. And I understand that finals, and you mentioned a lot that academics is important, but every member of this board is a student.
Right.
We had finals too, and we were sitting in meetings
Of
until
course.
11 o'clock, putting stuff out. So moving the deadline back doesn't, we have our responsibilities as well. I just want to point that out.
Right, and just for the deadline, we try our best to organize ourselves as much as we can and get things done before time. But like sometimes things happen, so that's why we thought that we could actually make it before the deadline, and that's why we tried to reach out to Bray. And that's the whole reason for us not being able to submit the budget request. But then again, everyone gets busy, so it's fine. It's all right. Thank you for your time, though.
Thank you. I'd like to move into our next discussion point. Reallocation and rescheduling across semesters.
Same to you, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, sorry. For some reason, I thought Justin was going to.
Justin's not.
Got to click on that. Yeah, you should be receiving an email from Justin Connor within the next 4 days. So
All right,
already.
thank you.
They come up with moving on to our next point, reallocation and rescheduling across semesters. Entrepreneurs at UMBC has indicated to us that they weren't able to complete their business competition event, which was supposed to occur on November 21st and November 26th. 21st. They want to know if they can reschedule that event, and that event would then be rescheduled across the semester into the springtime.
I think it's fair to say they had to cancel the event and rescheduling that could help.
Yeah, they canceled this event and they would like to reschedule it to the time of the spring semester. Which the question would then be on this board is, are we going to allow that because they're crossing funds over the semester? We've allocated that funding to them. Would the funding allocation that we use for FY fall then transfer over to the spring? So I do not have a good answer for you at this point, but that's why I'm bringing it to the board for discussion. We'll start with Scott.
I'm pretty sure funds have to be spent a semester if they canceled the event, that would be reallocating to an event.
Another reschedule.
Yeah, so they're still having it, but it's the date for it will be in the spring semester.
Yeah, it's the exact same event. That's why I'm bringing it to the book. So it's just reallocation. We could say we don't reallocate between events and that's it, but it's the exact same event shifting. Thank you for coming. Thank you for having me.
iPod squad.
The iPod squad.
Have a good evening.
I definitely, still don't understand like the.
Yeah, it's towards fiance. No, the president.
It's not actually.
Hot squad's not real. I would like to start it.
Okay, so having this
Michael.
conversation.
Gears in my head are slowly trying to turn. I'll tell you when it's on.
You're good. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So that's currently where we're at. If we want to allow the reallocation, or not the reallocation, the rescheduling of the event over semester period. It essentially means that the funds wouldn't roll back to us in the fall as they would in the other situation, and those funds would then be allocated during the springtime. Right.
There's nothing that explicitly prohibits this in our budgetary statutes, right?
I don't believe so. No.
Yeah, so we were.
I feel
3.7.
3.7?
Agree to Scott.
Unutilized funds allocated for student orientation budget shall be returned to the finance board.
We don't expect, we didn't have anything.
Allocated funds may only be used for the semester for which they are granted.
The deadline, I'm not certain.
I think that's our answer.
So
Is
there
everyone
were
okay with using that as our answer?
a few requests there.
I mean, the way I see it also is that although it's unfortunate, if we start going and reallocating funds across semesters, any event that's not able to be held will have to start doing the same consideration. And it would tie up a lot of money for a lot of semesters. So I don't think it would be smart on our behalf to start allowing that because it would become very messy business.
Right.
I just was thinking, it wouldn't necessarily be tying up funds for future semesters as we limited or already allocated to that specific event.
Right, but the issue here is we'll have to try to keep track of, you know, who wants to reallocate money to when, where, and making sure that money is getting spent accordingly. So that's why, in my opinion, it would become messy, just because then it's more of a burden on us just to make sure the funds are properly getting used, they're getting put where they need to be and everything, versus just going and taking money back and splitting it up to redistribute to all those student organizations.
It's more concise that we should be funding events that actually happen, so.
I'm also looking at the undue burden that it puts on SABSC to take note after we get that shifted over. So those funds wouldn't roll back to us, but normally they would. And any other semester, I probably wouldn't care that much about that, considering that we're going to be depending a lot on our rollback funds to supplement our over allocations and the CS fees. Yeah, I think so. Alright, so yeah, just, yeah, we're gonna do a vote on it once Zane gets back in. You guys don't mind. But yeah, so option A for the vote will be to allow organizations to reallocate or reschedule across semesters. Option B will be to not allow them to reschedule across semesters.
I guess if you were to allow them, you have to change the statute.
Yes.
Yeah, it also says any unspent funds will be returned to the finance board Sahas. Wait, no. 10 business days after an event is passed, all leftover spending is prohibited.
Yeah, so if you guys do decide to allow for rescheduling across semesters, I can create the changes to the budgetary statutes. According to Kansas, John will be showing up.
Yes. John is coming.
So, if you want to arrive until 7:10, you know, that does give me time to make those changes, should that be what this board wants to do. If it doesn't look like it, I'm fine with that, just give me your options.
Was doing that open up like a way to gain the system in a way, like saying, like, you're gonna have an event and then like, kind of just don't have it.
I can definitely talk to the board about that.
And then like, well, I can just use this money.
The only other way is to
if you want some historical context, as far as like what would happen in the past, so there was a few, I think few might be too many, but I'll say like one or two last year that had to get canceled for unforeseen circumstances, whether power, like things along those lines, where like something happened where the campus was like unable to function, so the events had to be canceled, and like those were considered. But then again, last year there wasn't a strict fall and spring, so. What's that?
Thousands of dollars a year, yeah.
Who was that? What group was that? Wasn't one of them?
I know we paid double for food, right?
Wasn't one of them like come home?
The campus shut down. It was prepared.
Right, so they had to pay for it.
It was like one of those things where campus was up and running, and then like either there was like a water out, something like that happened, and then it closed campus, and it was like right before the event started.
We haven't had a coach.
I think if we could decide to change our system, we could put safeguards in place, not allowing anything. Like if it was on Bridge side for BCS, not allowing anything to change or indicate that there's any changes, that simply rejecting and pulling back our funding immediately.
Do you remember why they said they canceled the event?
No.
Do you?
I do not.
I don't either. I know they told us, and I just don't remember.
What was the supposed to happen? Because for me, I would
We're
be
supposed
more.
to be happening in November.
November 21st.
So they just didn't leave us much time. Because I would be more for in favor of seeing if they could reallocate that money sometime in this semester, not going into a whole other semester. I guess due to the late time, we didn't really have any option.
Which is why they couldn't, or why they weren't.
I think, yeah.
But technically speaking, I don't think this is an issue anymore. If we think of it as we take back the funds, but they can come back through SAHAS and request due to unforeseen circumstances. Well, true. Well, I
And this
think that
situation
would
would be no, because there's competition for requested.
well, I mean, like, so under those two ideas, I definitely have to reallocate. So.
Do we want to do the bill without saying?
Should we do a straw poll?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do a straw poll. Straw poll, option A, in favor of allowing allocating across semesters. Option B, not in favor. All in favor of option A? Option A, straw poll, not, or in favor of allowing rescheduling across semesters.
In favor?
Yes. Option B, not, N-O-T, not in favor of rescheduling across semesters. All in favor of option A. Option B. Cool. We'll wait for Zane.
I think another thing would also be included,
Close the door.
if we would like have this like, between semesters for events, and that would also mean, I feel like situation might rise up where we also have to approve reallocating, like an event that was canceled, maybe like an event that was canceled like in the beginning of the semester, and then, like, yeah, just rescheduling an event regardless of like.
Alright, Zane, here's your 6-second catch-up. We're discussing whether or not we want to allow clubs to reallocate across semesters. Essentially, if an organization stop their event or cancel their event for some reason in the fall, could they then host the exact same event in the spring with the funding that we gave them for the fall? Right now, the leading of the board is a no because of our budgetary statutes indicating that you can't spend any money that wasn't allocated that semester. Question would be, do we want to change that or not? With option A, we'll be doing a vote momentarily about whether or not we want to do that. Should we do that? Change the committee to the budgetary statutes that can then bring up to the board to vote on right now. But if not, it's going to be where we stand.
Okay. I guess just personally and thinking about like the actual purpose of the budgeting system, I would probably vote no because I just think in planning stuff that like if you're having an event and you canceled for certain reasons, I don't think you should really, I think that's setting up an expectation that like the funding would, I mean, if you do set up the rules, that's the expectation that the funding could be utilized for something like the spring or the fall. So yeah, and I think just establishing the budget system kind of like crosses that out, so, I mean, that's where I stand, I don't know if anybody has any about supporting.
And I think everyone's pretty much in agreement
Oh,
with you. But I would just like to emphasize the point that, you know, everything Zane said, plus the fact that I feel like if a situation did come up like Tori was saying, where power did go out, I think the board could definitely view that as an unforeseen circumstance and reconsider it for Sahas. So I don't see any point of necessarily reallocating cost semesters.
Unforeseen, but not so tragic.
New hashtag.
All right, we're going to an official vote. Option A will be allowing clubs to reschedule across semesters. Option B will be to not, and OT, not allow clubs to reallocate across semesters. All in favor of option A, please raise your hand now. All in favor of option B? All right, looks like we will not allow clubs to reallocate across semesters. Dean put a note in the meeting minutes that I need to contact Montrose at UMBC to inform them of the decision of this board. All right, with that, considering that John is here, I'd like to move to amend the agenda. We're going to reallocate 10-1920, which is confirmation of John as an election board member. According to Candace, he will be coming at the time that we want him to come at. So I'd like to amend to add him to the agenda with the time frame being 7:10 and adding in a recess in between.
Actually, I had something that I want to talk about, but
Alright.
maybe actually let's not talk about it. Let's recircle back to this. I will talk about it at some other time. So don't call recess.
We can call a discussion. So strike recess indicate continuation of discussion. Recess will be called at the chair's discretion, and the amendment is only standing to jail and time being added at 7:10. So,
What if we do announcements now and then we'll probably let us get out earlier rather than having a recess?
Would not it just move to have discussion?
Yeah.
I missed it.
Yeah, we're striking recess. Recess will be called at the chair's discretion. All right. All in favor of the amendments, please raise your hand now. All opposed? All right. Discussion. Michael, you guys start.
So, PAXA, as frustrated as they were, understandably, I think they did bring up some at least partially valid points about the system. Something I've noticed is definitely the way that the scheduling of when budgets are due is very taxing, not only on student organizations, but also on the board as a whole. So my question is there, I mean, I have an idea, but I don't even know if I should propose it at this point. I'm internally struggling with it, but I was just curious, would the board be interested in exploring a new scheduling process, keeping the same budget cycles, keeping the same process of how the budgeting system works, but changing the way the dating of when budgets are due, possibly. I know we were in discussion about if we shifted a week forward, we shifted a week back, it doesn't change much, but possibly if we did things possibly like some universities do on a rolling basis, in terms of instead of directly before the spring ends, maybe making it between certain months like, I don't know, August to February. That's a budget consultant. And then from February to X, another budgeting cycle, and then doing it that way, which would allow most of the work to be done towards the beginning of the semester where, I guess, workloads are more lenient for people. Would that be something people would be interested in, even considering or exploring?
I'd be open to like moving around it. It's the one thing to do and how long that we have to consider everything. But obviously we need like a more thought out, through plan to like consider anything. It could be a fun, a great project if any of you guys want to put together. Some details.
Michael, what did you mean by like a rolling basis?
So to me, the issue is that we have to have 4 weeks to go and actually look through budgets. That's, I mean, even at 4 weeks, we were hard pressed to get everything done. So the biggest issue is, to me, we are trying to keep the budgets within semesters. So if we are trying to look at spring budgets, we're trying to get it seen by the fall semester so we can have the budgets approved by spring. But instead of them considering them spring and fall budgets, if we went and considered like budget session 1, budget session 2, budget session 3, with dates that are not directly positioned on when the semester ends or begins, I feel like that would allow us the flexibility to go and better choose. We can keep it consistent, but better choose a time where the board wouldn't be as stressed workload-wise, and student organizations wouldn't be as stressed workload-wise, and trying to get budgets prepared and reviewed, just in general. That's what I'm more kind of angling at. I think trying to keep things in between semesters, although I understand the sentiment behind it, I think it does cause a lot of issue with trying to do it in a way where people aren't just pressured to try to get things done in a timely manner, which is really difficult. So, yes.
Scott?
I think that could be an interesting idea. Like if we broke it up by how much events are going to be requesting for, we could have like all the big events requests earlier, look through those, have the smaller events requests, look through those, and then on, and then we would have like them broken up artificially, and then still consider them all together at the end after we've basically vetted them.
I'm going to go ahead and move to table discussion since we have John here. We can take it afterwards. Is everyone okay with that? All right, we're going to table discussion then. And introduce or bring up JL 10-1920, 010. JL 10-1920, confirmation of John Jun as election board member. We're going to go ahead and do a round of introduction just so you know who we are, and then you'll be given time to introduce yourself, and we'll do a question and discussion, all the stuff you did before.
Yeah.
Who wants to start?
Yes, sir. My name is Bull, I'm a retriever, he, him, and I don't vote.
Scott Buchanan, SGA treasurer, he, him, and I do vote.
I'm Rand Durden. I am a voting member of the finance board and UC.
Janice Martinez, I'm assistant director for leadership and governance. I also serve as the SGA advisor. I use she, her pronouns, and I am not a voting member.
Tori Heasley, coordinator for student organizations, finance board advisor, she, her pronouns, I do not vote. Question that time.
I'm Sierra Duke, I'm a first year ambassador, I use she, her pronouns, and I do not vote.
I'm Emmanuel Otunula, I'm also a first year ambassador, I use she, her pronouns.
Dean Secretary for Finance Board. I'm a non-voting member and I use he, him pronouns.
My name is Jocelyn Klein. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm also a non-voting member.
My name is Liam Kim. I currently serve for the chair of the finance board. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a voting member conditionally.
I'm Dean Poffenberger, vice president for student organizations, he, him pronouns, and I'm a voting member.
I'm Elise Choi, finance board representative. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a voting member.
Yeah, it's me. Hi, Michael Chapman, finance board representative, he, him, voting member.
Hi, I'm Victor Boschman, finance board representative, I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a voting member, and I was also a non-voting member.
And I'm John June, he, him pronouns, and that's it.
You want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Oh,
give the full thing.
yes.
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay.
Normally we don't end on that personally, but this time we did. So you want to give an introduction to yourself, why you want to be an election board, what you can bring, why you're here, all of that.
Okay, so let me start over. My name is John. I'm a junior here in bioinformatics. I was recommended by Candace to apply for this position. And why I'm interested is because I have never done this kind of work before. It's my first time. I currently hold about, I think, 3 positions on campus. Always looking for the next step, and I think this opportunity is the next step that I would like to try. Not only only because, well, mostly because I haven't done it, so I am very eager to learn what it's all about, like the election board process, and most of all, getting to meet new people, and just to learn about like the process behind the whole SGA elections. And what I think, or how I think I can help bring up like the poll numbers, because I think that was like a major concern of the SGA. This was just like a very rough idea that I threw around in like my other confirmation hearings, but you know how if you go through to actual elections, you get the I voted thing? I think if we made that a trend here on my on UMB on this campus, I think it would be great. And I, just rough ideas include like the paw thing, like a paw print with like I voted with like the SGA logo on it, and make that a trend. By targeting especially the large organizations, student boards, such as like RSA, and definitely targeting Greek Life. Because, if we target those, like president of those organizations, we could definitely, like easily make it into a trend on this campus. Like if people have it on their laptops, I think it catches on pretty quickly around here. They just hang out in the comments with their I voted thing on their MacBook. I think that will definitely help bring up poll numbers.
All right. Any questions for the candidate? No.
Can you specify the 3 roles you're given?
Oh yes. So I serve as, I work as the student team lead at the undergraduate admissions office, where I oversee about 25 students. I work for the Academic Success Center as a IHU peer facilitator, where I help teach a seminar class. And last but not least, for Campus Life, as the leadership peer facilitator for Beatrice.
Any other questions? Scott, go ahead.
What year are you?
Junior.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any other questions? Take it away.
I guess what previous experiences, whether that be here at UMBC, or through another organization, do you think will help you work with like others on the board in terms of like coming up with something effective to engage students?
So through my current position that I hold with undergraduate admissions, like promotion is like a really big thing, because you have to promote like this institution as a whole, and I've facilitated with, I would say, countless like large-scale events where I interacted with families to promote this institution, and I think this role would be something similar where I can help promote like a voting thing, but by serving as like the election board, working with other people, like I'm a very extroverted person, so I love working with other people, and I, through my current position, I was told by Brenda that there will be definitely some sort of trauma, in the election season, which is, whether it be minor or major. And conflict resolution is definitely like my strong suit, because by managing like different students, there's always some kind of conflict, and by mediating those conflicts, I think I will serve. I've gained experience that will definitely somehow come in handy in this position.
Thank you. Scott?
Working with Beatrice, do you have any connections to people already in SGA that can like lead device or anything?
Do I know anyone in SGA? No.
You're the chair of the election.
Yes, Caleb Cagle, newly elected to the election board. I work with him for Beatrice as well, so I do know him. And that's it.
But just to make sure y'all know, Caleb is not allowed to run for position in office for the following year.
That's a bomb. I'm gonna run for president and also run the election. If I may ask, you weren't here last meeting?
Yeah, no, I was not. So the email just like completely slipped my attention because it came the day before, I think at like 2 a.m. So sorry, I missed the email.
At this point, we're gonna go ahead and move it to, oh wait, does anyone have any final questions? All right, at this point, we're gonna,
I'm just, sorry.
you snuck it up so you're ready to speak. We're gonna go ahead and move into discussion. During this time, only finance representatives and voting members can talk amongst each other. So it's basically a time for us to be able to discuss freely. But if you hear anything you feel is out of place, your words have been misconstrued, or there's something you want to address, you'll be given time at the end to address it. All right, with that, I'd like to move into discussion. Let's go first. Thank you.
John was one of the candidates for also being the election board chair. And so, even though Caleb ended up being chair, John still definitely wanted to be involved in the election board, and he has a lot of great ideas and enthusiasm for the position, which is always needed. And his experience is really helpful with just working on a team in general. Like all of us on the nominating committee felt that John is a great fit for Washington. So basically somewhat
Yeah, I'll have to say.
I was about to let Scott go ahead. I have no issues at the current moment. Do you want to wait till you have your idea? All right, I'd like to move for Review's question.
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? All right, with that, I'd like to introduce JL 1010-1920, John June as election board member. Whereas nominating committee does stuff, whereas they fully vetted the candidate, and whereas they must be confirmed by both parties. Therefore, be resolved that the Senate Finance Board confirm John June's position of election board member to the 2019-2020 academic year, receiving an annual stipend to be determined. Is there a motion on the floor?
To approve this as
jail term.
Is there a second? All right, would anyone like to register an abstention? All right, all in favor, please raise your hands now. All opposed? 6-4, 0 against, 1 abstaining, 2 not present. The motion carries. Yeah, we're gonna have to break it. I state your name. I state your name.
I, John June,
Do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will faithfully execute
that I will faithfully execute
the office of election board member
the office of election board member
of the UMBC Student Government Association
of the UMBC Student Government Association
and will, to the best of my ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
promote and defend
promote and defend
the interests and well-being
the interests and well-being
of UMBC's undergraduate students.
of UMBC undergraduate students.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
You are official. Then you have this chance this morning to get on board. Alright. With that being said, we have 2 options in front of us. We can reopen discussion on the issue mentioned prior, or we can move to announcements. We're going to go ahead and take a straw poll for that. All in favor of continuing discussion from before John came in, please raise your hands now. Alright, and all in favor of just moving to announcements? Alright, so we continue discussion points. I believe you were the last one to speak, so the floor is yours.
Okay, I'll try to make this quick because we don't have stuff. So, in general, I gave it a couple more minutes of thought. What I'm really proposing here is that we shift budget due dates to possibly X amount of weeks. However many weeks that is, it's really board to determine as a whole. We shift all the budgets, like, so there's 3 budgets. We have the spring, fall, and summer budgets. We don't do, well, I mean, we don't handle it, but it doesn't handle stuff.
That was a one-time thing.
Oh.
No, we don't fund events in the summer. You don't fund events in the summer, but because you were transitioning from one budget system to another last year, you had to approve over the summer.
board that'll be doing 3 budget cycles.
Okay, that's fair. So then, with that being the case, I don't think it's unfair to say that we just shift everything by X amount of weeks. How many weeks? I think that's something that could be better can be discussed as a board and something could.
So you're saying give them more time?
So I'm saying, I don't even think it's just them in general, I think it's us too. I think we'll be in a better position to not be pressed as hard within the 4-week timeline if we go and shift all the budgets accordingly. So, I'm sorry.
Just that.
Oh, no, what's happening now?
What?
Did you draw something else?
Oh, I didn't understand what was happening.
I was just asking if you were drawing, that was all. You're a visual learner.
Also, what does blue one say?
Huh?
I'm just making sure I'm emailing the right people. What was it?
Like a calendar with
JUNIAD. AID.
We are. I'm just making sure that the days are the right ones.
You need your one.
Yeah, I do. I'm a public man.
Okay,
Let's talk about it.
so currently, what are those? I don't know.
March 13th, fall, it's 7 weeks into the semester.
Okay.
It's March 13th.
March 13th. Okay, this is currently what Yeah.
It's the week after the spring quarter.
Wait, so March, but it's already due 7 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for fall semester, they'll be due March 13th.
Okay. So then for spring semester, can't we just take slightly more money from fall, from spring semester, put it into the fall semester, and then fund out for a longer period of time?
But you have to change the budget thing.
Yeah, you have to change the budgetary statute.
So I mean, I'm understanding, I think anything we do, we're gonna have to change budgetary statutes, but I mean, do people think that that's a good solution?
You're saying, are you saying you have a deadline sometime in the spring semester
Right.
for the fall semester, but also for part of the following spring semester?
Correct. So instead of funding per semester basis, you fund per a weekly basis for whatever the fiscal amount of time is.
So basically, like, they'd be turning in their fall, and correct me if I'm misinterpreting, they'd be turning in their fall budgets, but you wouldn't just be approving for the fall semester, you'd also be approving into the spring semester.
But then
Right.
what,
Right, so instead of,
then what would the next finance board do?
so the next, so if we shift everything, I think it would balance out. Everyone would still be observing the same amount of budgets. The issue would be, the difference would be you're looking at them at different periods of time instead. So you're still looking at 2 budgets per semester, per year. It's just that instead of doing it like, so we did a dead center of fall semester this year. We look, the finance board will look at it at the beginning of the spring semester. So like a couple of weeks into the spring semester, you look at it throughout the spring semester, and then you go into the next budget. So do you kind of get what I'm saying?
No.
So at the beginning of the spring semester, allocating for that spring semester.
Part of that spring semester. So you allocate based, so like,
Yeah, can you draw it?
yeah,
Yeah,
I had an idea about drawing, but it confused me.
How
So
many months?
I think, say it again.
How many months are we talking about?
I really don't mind. It sounds like the old system. Well, it sounds like the old system actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except budgets.
Except budget.
Except with budget
Yeah.
this time.
Well, it
No,
would be
no.
with budgets because I think it works so I think it works the same as the current system. I think the only difference, at least in my perspective, but I might be overlooking something here, the difference is the timing to me. So timing is very peculiar at this point where it's right in the middle of the fall semester. But if we were able to shift the timing by multiple weeks, not just 1 week this way or 1 week that way, but by multiple weeks towards push it back, I think it would give student organizations more time to prepare budgets, and it would give us more time to examine budgets where we're not pressed. So instead of looking at it at a semesterly base, we look at it per week base. So if we say one budgeting cycle is average semester is 16 weeks, we say one budgeting cycle is 18 weeks. We look at a budget we look at spring semester budgets at 18 weeks, and then we look at fall semester budgets at 18 weeks. Do you kind of get what I'm saying?
No, but I'm tired.
Okay.
I don't. And you may be explaining it very clearly, it's just not clicking for me.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time.
So-
Scott, then with you.
So why I'm confused by this, what you said right before we got cut off, is if we get budgets come in at different times, have a different due date for those that like cost more and then those that cost less, we would be able to break it up in a similar way to that, which I think that Michael's trying to explain, but
I worry about the cost more, cost less, because, what is to stop a board, and I know you could say, well, we only have this much money for these big events, but what's to stop a board from saying, okay, we're gonna give all of our money to big events, and none of our money to small events?
it's just when the due date is, and then you look over them, they're all considered at the same time. But that would allow us to kind of break up our rushing it and kind of go back to a little bit of the timing of the previous system where events that cost more had to be submitted farther in advance for more review.
Yeah.
So I think
I
taking that.
see where you're going with that. I think there'd be pushback from orgs as far as like groups that are doing big and small ones of having two due dates, if that makes sense. Like I see where you're coming from as like we would have more time to review the big ones before we can review all of them together.
Well, it's not just due dates, it also kind of split it up artificially for ECS as well.
Yeah.
So
this is a general comment, not about anything that anybody has said. I think that we will never find a system that works for everyone. You're gonna get something that works for 80% of the people, and if you get that, you have a really good system. And
you're only gonna hear from the 20%.
You're only gonna hear from the 20, and also like, and I think Courtney said this before, like we gotta just see, like this is the first semester that student orgs have felt real consequences for not doing things by the deadline. Like over the summer, they sort of got a pass on not meeting with DCS, and we still did the DCS piece, even though they hadn't met with DCS, and because it was new and people were learning. This is the first semester where you all have been like, nope, this is it.
Which isn't a bad
Which
thing.
is not bad. It is, I think, something that is, that it forces people to have to plan. And that's what I think will be in their benefit eventually, planning ahead. It'll be in DCS's benefit eventually, and it'll be in your benefit. It's hard right now because I think you're not used to it, the orgs are not used to it, DCS is not used to it. I would ask you to give it one more semester.
I think if there is going to be any changes, I would highly recommend not moving it up. Because it just gives everyone less time, you know what I mean? It gives, especially knowing campus life side of the start of a semester, there is zero chance that Britt will be able to meet with everyone, especially in the fall semester when she's doing all of her workshops and everything else. So I think where it's at is probably like the earliest you can have submissions, but I also don't think it's a bad idea for you all to extend how many weeks you look at budgets. Because even if the deadline stays where it is, we're how many weeks past budgets at this point? Like we could have extended it 2 weeks, you know what I mean? Like if you wanted 6 weeks, does that change anything for orgs? No, but this is a culture shift for everyone, and once they get the hang of it, they're gonna get the hang of it and know that, all right, it's September, I need to start planning with Brit, stuff like that. And also kind of keep in mind too, this is just a general statement, correct me if I'm wrong or if this has changed, but for student orgs cannot register events a year out. So
They can now.
Brit has changed it
They've
to
changed.
allow orgs to do so because we changed our system. So they've completely correct.
for big events or
Any event, they put in their stuff,
Never
and
mind.
then if there's a conflict, registrar's office gets priority, they'll get involved with that, but otherwise, the moment that goes live and the class schedule gets put in, then where it starts piecemeal everything, I just need to say that.
Never mind. Forget that last one.
So, one thing I like to say, or a couple things I say, and then we'll go off to Brian, is just that, I think the way the system is, I feel bad for Paxa, but, as you heard from them, they had stuff ready, they could have done it, but they waited until that last minute. I think definitely setting up the time, and two of the things that we talked about when we were doing our after action review, one of them was a more aggressive ad campaign, keeping on what we did this time, letting clubs know, this is your budget, you have to get this in, and maybe Denver or somebody saying, this is when you have to talk to ECS 5, and have the day there, like in small letters, ECS 5, March 1st, budgets by March 13th, something along those lines. And another thing that you guys had talked about during our after action review was a schedule that we put out in terms of when clubs we were talking about once we got the information in. And that also addressed a lot of the situation concerns where clubs will finally have the opportunity, as they used to potentially come in. They're not guaranteed speaking time, they're not guaranteed discussion time, but they'll know when their club is being talked about. And you will know that that club is being talked about. So everyone knows when every club is being talked about before that meeting starts. So I think because of these systems in place, it addresses a lot of these concerns. And yeah, I feel bad for Paxa, but I mean, you can't use the excuse of finals and then you've had time, we have our finals too. Right?
So whatever timeline we go with, I think putting the due dates on the Google Calendar and then just kind of pushing clubs to start using the Google Calendar would be very useful, because it would also have our office hours and would help them to compare when due dates were relative to their own schedules.
Can we embed a Google Calendar in my UMBC page?
Into my UMBC page?
Or like a link for it?
You could probably embed it in there on an iframe.
Or even just the link, because we can post the link to the calendar in my UMBC pages.
Yeah, you can post the link easily. And
Yeah, the link's easy. I more so was thinking embed and I can just post the link. That's also
I think we exactly too. Abdullah?
So, last week, I want to speak to your point. Last week, I was going through the special collections so I could figure out some stuff about WMBC, and I was going through tons and tons of articles talking about how SGA is trying to make, from the 70s, they were trying to get their initiatives out there, talking about clubs and things like that. I think something very beneficial for you to consider is trying to find a social media outlet that all clubs, to force all clubs to use a single social media outlet. And let me explain what I mean by this. So in the 70s, the Retriever was far more well-read because it was a newspaper on campus, right? And all club budgets were in the Retriever, all SGA initiatives were in the Retriever. The SGA would take out two-page ads to tell people what's going on. They had physical documents that they give to every club saying, here's the forms you need, do X, Y, Z, go to this person, and so on and so forth. So I think a unified, forcing clubs to join one place and posting all your stuff there would be really, really beneficial.
We already do.
Awesome. I mean,
Well, it's my UMBC.
right, but my point is that, for example, with the Retriever, it was more, I don't think a lot of people use my UMBC.
I think out of everything's on my UMBC, but I think it's more a point is one centralized location for information that you can go to. And right now, while we have that in the electronic sense, we don't have that in the physical sense, which might be useful. So
Yeah, so this was something we did over the summer, so it's definitely a newer initiative, if that's a good word for it. But every single club has to list their officers and actually go in, not just type this person's the treasurer, they have to select them, and doing that automatically puts them in a private group where we send out everything. Excuse me. So that's how we've been, Scott's been communicating treasurer stuff, how we've been communicating officer stuff. And then everything's also, all of our files as well. trying to put all of the files in there, but also a culture shift, but they all are forced, if they want to renew, to have that UMBC page and have their officers up to date in there. So we're trying.
Scott, anything to say?
So I tried to kind of use a mixture of both, using the centralized platforms, using the Retriever SGA, so social media, Retriever social media for my workshops. I think that it would just kind of be beneficial to get like an earlier start in advertising it, because I did mine only 2 weeks out, and that was definitely not enough time. And even in the first week of my workshops, not many people came. But like just like trying to get that sense of urgency earlier, people will be more inclined to start working on it.
Yeah, it's okay if I submit a request to comms and graphics to have something ready to be put out by second week of February.
First week of February?
First week of February. Oh yeah, we get back on in January.
Yeah.
First week of February. Yeah, put in the request to comms and request that we have something done that you guys can look at for approval on the second finance board meeting, and by that night it goes live. Same.
I guess mine's more general discussion. It was just about the works, but it kind of related to scheduling and things like that, but I don't know how that. It was more of like feedback, having a discussion, so I can send an email about what we kind of talked about with it.
Well, if it's relevant, let's tell us.
Well, it was about, I mean, it's relevant to scheduling in that it was Hosta's feedback in terms of like scheduling, which I know we already talked about, but in terms of like non-response, I guess, from Brit, in terms of like, I didn't know how the board that felt, because they said they would email her and that it would be like a delayed response in terms of trying to get back. Like one of their situations they were in was that the ticket prices were put up wrong and incorrectly, and then trying to get in contact with her, like there was just no response. So I mean, obviously I understand like one person in terms of like planning and things like that, but I don't know if that's another discussion about like how ECS operates.
I don't know.
Well, I was talking to Fox during the time that they were trying to schedule this, because I was in the room for their main event, but Costa came in pretty late already into the week of the submission, and was trying to learn the processes then. So she just got a really late start. There isn't really anything that could be done. So because it was into Brit somewhere, I'm not sure if that's why she didn't get a response.
Yeah, because I mean, I guess the other thing was, in terms of, because my understanding of why Brit was overwhelmed is because when events would happen in the past, like it's more stratified because people are meeting with her at different times, but I'm assuming that people just kept meeting with her late, so that's why she was like booked.
So I think it's a lot of things that I don't think anything this board has control over.
That's basically what I said. I said we don't have any control over how ECS
It's
operates.
ECS, this is an example of life, is that if you wait to the last minute, you'll feel the consequences. But ECS had a lot going on, staffing, requests, a brand new system. There was gonna be flaws with it, and Brit did, I mean, 25 Live Pro was rolling out, they were down a staff member, there was a lot going on. They were very, very backed up, and it just is what it is. And that's not something anyone could really control. They were trying their best to keep up with things, but just kind of feeds to the point of be proactive.
Yeah, Brit also put something up on the scheduler page saying like emails won't get responded to for this amount of time because she was so backed up. So I think a concrete change that we could make to the system that we have right now is if there's a way to automatically repost things from the scheduler group into the treasurer group or into the officer group, so that all officers can understand what's happening with ECS and have multiple kind of fail safes of people who aren't schedulers knowing and holding schedulers accountable.
I think they need to be communicating with each other.
Like you board should be communicating.
Yeah, so the reason that we have those separate pages is that so we're not bombarding the officers, is for things that all officers need to know, if that makes sense. So that way, like if you're the treasurer and you're like literally don't care about the, well, you might be your treasurer, but you know what I mean? Like if it's, I'm trying to phrase what I'm saying, trying not to overwhelm everyone with all the information so that they're actually reading what's important, if that makes sense. Because student or leaders like to hit the delete button and not read things if it doesn't apply to them. And when that officer page is supposed to be just for things that they all need to know about, versus things that don't apply to them, and then they get in the habit of not reading them, if that makes sense. I worded that really oddly, so sorry.
Yeah, only targeted information when it gets to them. So if we put everything in the officer's always page, not everyone's gonna read it.
I mean, I don't know if this is like a thing that usually happens, but it just seems like this semester there's been a lot of like changes in like leadership with a lot of boards, and so I do understand like the point of like the page getting like super crowded with a lot of information, but it seems like people who aren't necessarily the ones in charge of like the clubs funds end up knowing more, paying more attention to, I guess, finance board and stuff. So I don't know if maybe it's better to post, I guess, stuff that might go on the treasurer page to all officers. I don't know. It's just something to think about.
Groups just don't transition either.
We're gonna go Michael and Scott. Scott.
I think it would also be a good idea probably to mandate that all treasurers become schedulers also.
Each group can only have 2 schedulers.
There's no way to,
That's not an us policy, that's an ECS policy.
well, can't we still mandate that one is the treasurer and one can be someone else? Because I think considering the treasurer has full control over the finances of the organization and any serious decisions that has to be made in terms of booking rooms and stuff, I think it's very imperative that they are one of the people who are at all times ready to any concerns that may go out to the scheduler. So
For some groups, yes, but not for all of them,
So
if that makes sense.
For
Like,
example, VMF books out for their GBOs and all their events. They don't request money from us because they're self-sufficient with their fundraisers. Their treasurer would never need to see 25 live.
yeah,
Because they
and
have an
same
internal
with
vice president whose job is to do that.
fraternities and sororities, that would put that on them who don't request in club sports, and like the percentage of orgs that request funding is not even 50%, if that makes sense.
Scott?
The solution to that then is just like an opt-in page with all the information so they can see if they want to. But I think we're getting kind of into circular discussion now, so I think we should end soon.
We can look at potential options. I think clubs just have to kind of manage on their own, and then should a member drop or something, make it in our first days. Anyone goes out, hey, if you have problems with your e-board or you feel like you're not getting enough information, let us know. We can add people onto that page, we can remove people off that page very easily.
None of those ones.
I mean, with the information rise, we can forward emails off, we can get people set up, we can get them the channels to get someone else in, but we can't babysit them. That being said, any announcements?
I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
Is there a reason why we got any liaisons
So Justin put out an email asking which clubs you'd like to have, any clubs you'd like to drop. And then after that, I shifted because a big complaint from members of the board was that the workload was too much. Therefore, Justin and I took on liaisons, and Mohammed was also disseminated to Ryan as well. Ilsa was the only one who responded to that email indicating that she would like to keep all of her clubs due to the report that she built with all of them, which is why her list seems longer on there. It was because of her request. Otherwise, clubs were taken and added on. If you'd like to do a shift or a change or any clubs you'd like to keep or clubs you definitely might get rid of, you can email around the board and changes can be shifted. Scott?
So one announcement, this was basically for Ilsa, but she's not here, but so you guys know since she's on it. I'm meeting with SABSC to resolve her question in Slack chat about the verbal contract that Arab Student Union had with the DJ. Ms. Stanley said that should be able to get resolved, so I'll be meeting with them tomorrow. Also, please respond to the Green.training email. There's at the end of Candace's long email about the winter retreat, so just make sure you respond to that so we can get Green Dot set up for all elected officers and probably FYAs as well next semester.
RSA is having their midnight breakfast tonight. You should come on out. It's no longer just for residential students apparently, so even if you are a commuter, you can still go and enjoy some free food. So I've been told. Yeah, you should go do that. Zane?
Scott, where's this survey?
It's in the green dot
Yeah.
training. It's
No, it's the one
sent out another
that,
email
look up which
previously.
one.
Oh, okay.
So it should be like when a retreat and stuff. If you already attending green dot, you don't feel like you have to attend, but everybody should be doing green dot training. Especially if you're an elected officer, it's basically bystander intervention training. And the speakers on campus, you should all have that training.
Any other announcements? Go ahead.
Not an announcement, more like a request. If there's anything relevant to the finance board, can we make like, start making a habit to put it on the calendar, so it's just easy to reference?
Define relevant to finance board,
Like, finance board events.
such as.
Like those, like posts or like midnight breakfasts. You mean like party stuff? Like what would it like?
So the current calendar is mainly for office hours,
Right.
and then if or part request, I can have like, the regular finance board meeting to that, but there are no other finance board events that we're currently holding that are open to the public. There is another calendar that's gonna be made and go live during January, that will have all the events that we funded, that's going to be a separate calendar.
Okay. You mean like the calendar from last year?
It's just, it's easier to reference when things are happening if it's like a visual.
Yeah. I can add more stuff to that also.
Oh, like the green dot training, like have that as an actual date.
It's not set up, but
Like an SGA client
Survey.
report.
Yeah.
I mean, once Green Dot training is finalized, it'll pop up on the Google calendar.
got on by emergency stuff. But we need a survey to gauge interest and know when people to reserve space for things like that.
Alright, any other announcements? Alright, I adjourn this meeting at 7:37. I recognize that I am present, Zane is present, Elise is present, Michael is present, Anthony is present, Scott is present, Brian is present, Logan and Blaise ex officio at 1 2.
Hi Candace. How are you?
Anybody?